Good afternoon and welcome to a slightly different video. Today is a quick look at a game called The Outer Worlds. This is a game I've sunk roughly 45 hours into and I've enjoyed it. I wanted to break down what I think is good about the game, what I think is poor about the game, and generally just give an overall chat with some gameplay in the background. You can make your mind up based off my opinions and the gameplay you're seeing if it's the game for you. I'm not a reviewer. I'm not somebody that typically does reviews. I just play games. When a certain game has piqued my interest a lot, I do often give a little quick review, similar to Total Biscuit's WTF. However, I am not trying to say I'm in any way in the caliber of the great TB. I've wrote a little list down to make things a little bit more concise and clear for myself and you, and I'll just chat about each of the bullet points I've got written down. Now, visually, the game is great. I'm running this on a GTX 970 and an i7 4790K. Pretty humble PC systems by almost 2020 standards, and the game ran really smoothly. Didn't have any major problems. I was even able to get a stream out whilst playing without the FPS tanking too much. So the game runs really well. It's got really good option menus. I didn't really find anything in there that was lacking. You know, you can customize your FPS limits. You can change the overall volume of everything that you want, dialogue, sound effects. You can change key bindings, and everything that I sort of looked for was there. Other games don't have that. So for example, a more modern example is the brand new Halo that's just come out. You can't cap your FPS to 144. There aren't customizable graphics settings, so not every game has this, and it was nice to see the Outer Worlds have them. The theme of the game is your classic RPG. It's a game where you're looting, you're walking around the world, and it's basically a big role-playing game. It's by Obsidian Entertainment. It's on the PS4, the Xbox One, and Windows, and I think a Nintendo Switch version is coming out in 2020 as well. So you can pick it up on Steam, Epic Games, you know, stuff like that. So it's widely available. It's also on Game Pass, and Game Pass is currently £1. So for £1 you can get a full month of the Outer Worlds game, and I really do recommend it. Like in any RPG, you're going to be questing, you're going to be visiting towns, you're going to be moving from place to place, picking up quest items, taking them to people, following a storyline, making choices that impact the story. And for me, there hasn't really been a good RPG in a while. So how good of an RPG is it? It's a pretty damn good RPG. It's by Obsidian, so they have a caliber of sort of game that they like to uphold. They've done the South Park games, which were very well enjoyed, Fallout New Vegas, Star Wars Night of the Republic, I think even Wasteland 2 they might have done, which was quite well enjoyed. So they've got a history of making some pretty good games, and I think people generally enjoy their style of game. Now for me, I really enjoy the whole space environment, the whole futuristic world, traveling with ship to ship, and it is very spacey. And if you're not into that sort of environment, I know people such as my friend, he really likes the Fallout sort of post-apocalyptic world, but I'm really big into the whole space style. So for me, the game was really great to look at, and it's a sort of era and a time that I like to play my games in. As any good RPG, it's got really good dialogue, it's got really good storytelling.
I'm afraid not. Dr. Williams managed the town's allotments from his terminal upstairs. Even I can't access them. Well, this certainly isn't worth my good health. I'll get you a dose, but I'll have you know, I'm very disappointed in you.
And the game can keep you glued for a long period of time just listening to all of the different characters in the game. If your RPG doesn't have really good dialogue, I think it's going to fail, and this game really did have good dialogue. It's also got a very, I'd say, the most diverse skill tree in the world, coming from I'm a Path of Exile player, so it's not the most diverse skill tree in the world, but it's a very strong skill tree, and it lets you spec into different things. Basically, every single attribute gives you certain bonuses. If you've got a certain amount of persuasion, it might also give you, say, headshot damage, etc. That's not an actual specific, but you get the point. Whichever perk you take and whichever one you rank up the most will also have an effect on a companion or some element of the game. So there's always choices to be made. For me personally, I thought if this game is going to be good, it's going to have good dialogue. So I went heavy into intimidation, persuasion, and I was, I guess you would call it a speech build, because I think any good RPG worth its salt is gonna have good dialogue, and this did. So there were many opportunities for me to progress the story and brute force my way through certain areas which I might have needed a key for, I might have needed to kill somebody, I might have needed to do a backtracking quest, but I was able to intimidate or speak my way through it, and that was very good. In some aspects it was a little bit strong, but I think that's a reward for picking the quote non-combat one. It's not as fun, so it's a little bit of a reward that it gets to be a bit strong. So in this game you have companions, and these companions are people that they're like your guild of people. And this guild of people you meet along the way. I won't spoil anything because they're interesting characters, and you get to pick who you want to pick up, who you want to drop, and you create this guild of people. And this sort of style is where the game begins to expand. So these different people that you might meet somebody and you want him to be melee, so you spec him into melee and you pick up melee weapons, you carry melee weapons around for him, and you set him up to be the melee guy. Then you might get some woman and you want her to be the ranged sniper, so you set her up with sniper style perks, pick up all the snipers and long rifles for her, and etc, etc, and you go through and you build a little composition. Now the ease of play, I thought it was very easy to play in the sense of quality of life things. When you're over encumbered, there's a perk that lets you fast travel, so when you're carrying all this junk for your companions, you can fast travel to your ship, dump it all in the ship, and then sort it later. It just allows you to get back into the action a bit quicker. You're not spending your whole life sorting through inventory. Speaking of the inventory, basically there's lots of options to sort it through value, weight, different types of categories, and it just made it easy to pick out the stuff you wanted. And for me, I get really irritated by bad menus, and I didn't find any bad menus in this. I thought it was really enjoyable to play. Again, the weapons, it's got a wide variety of weapons. It's not the most diverse you're ever going to see. You're not going to get crazy weapons like Borderlands-esque thousands of guns, no. But there are, poison hammers, shock hammers, long rifles, shock snipers. You can tweak things and you can sort of create new weapons with the workbench, which I found useful. So the weaponry is very interesting, it's good, and I enjoyed it because obviously sometimes you want to play melee, sometimes you might want to play range. So there was enough diversity there to keep me interested. Now, for me, I've played 45 hours and I'm only like halfway through the game, and I think you can beat the game in like 12 minutes if you do a certain ending, and you can quickly get through all of the quests in about 12 to 18 hours if you play it leisurely. I like to explore everything, that's just the way I do things, so it takes me a lot longer to complete the game. However, one of the downsides that I've found and sort of has stopped me playing the game currently is, for me, I'm a big explorer, and currently, at the time of recording, the pattern of play is very much speak to sort of quest giver. That quest giver, you have a really nice piece of dialogue, it's really interesting. Then there's like backtracking and fetching, there's a lot of fetch quests, and then often you'll pick up the stuff and you'll think to yourself, I've already cleared this whole area, and I've already scanned and scouted and looked around this whole area, but it wasn't there, such as like a key card in a toilet. You'll be like, that wasn't there last time. And it seems to be that only certain pieces of the game are available after you've spoke to a certain AI, which means that exploring often is a little bit pointless, because the quests and the way the game works is the game wants to always keep you on track. It's very good at delivering you side missions and delivering you main missions that keep you on the beaten track. It doesn't want you to get stuck in menus, get annoyed by being over encumbered. There's perks to deal with that, so it keeps you always playing, and you're always on the game and it feels fun. However, I'm not going to say it's a rail, you're on a rail, because it's nowhere near a rail game. However, the worlds are slightly smaller than I'd personally like in an RPG, and the quests point you from A to B to C to D to E to F, And really, they take you to all of the key things you need to pick up, loot, and have a look around. And there's no real reason to actually look around the area. Just do the quest, it will take you to everything important. Now, obviously, that's not always the case. There are a few things you do get for exploring. However, it's really not worth the extra like 30 hours I put into exploring. I should have just done the quests and got 90% of the stuff. For me, the pattern of the game was enjoyable. However, I kept getting bored after about 2 hours of the cycle of listening to some really good dialogue, then get stuck in a fetch quest. They're not all fetch quests. Some have some very interesting and fun quests. A lot of the AI are very, very humorous to listen to, especially like the robot bar guys. Very good dialogue, and it's a great game. I'm not saying it's a poor game in any stretch of the imagination. It's just when I've got loads of other games to play and I'm trying to make content, I found after about 45 hours, I was like, right, I get the game, I understand what it's about. I don't really need to complete it. The storyline's going to be good, I know that, and I'd really got a good gist of it. The HUD, the only thing I didn't like about the HUD was it was very much, you could turn it all off, I'm talking about the heads-up display, or leave it all on. You couldn't really customize it entirely, and this was difficult to have a bit of immersion in the game, and not being able to turn off all of the gamey HUD elements is annoying, and when you do turn them off, you don't get to see things like the companion skills and when they're ready, so it misses a lot of key information. And what was a little bit frustrating for me was the companion abilities were always the same, so once you've heard it once, it gets a bit repetitive because you hear a cutscene, because you see a cutscene, then you hear a voice line, and this repeats every single time you press the companion button, and I found myself not wanting to press it because I was getting sick of reading and listening to the same basically cutscene and audio clip. The difficulty of the game is as hard as you want to make it, but I found it a bit of a strange difficulty system. It went from basically very, very easy to borderline impossible. There was not much in between, and I struggled to find a difficulty that suited me. On the super easy mode, you don't really need the companions because you can just blitz through everything, and on the harder modes, the companions just sort of die. Their companion abilities don't really do enough damage, and overall you're just playing safe, and I didn't really enjoy that style. I didn't play the game for that. But overall, I thought it was a very, very fun game. Highly recommend it. I know I've spoke negatively, but I just like to be open and balanced. Do recommend picking it up, especially with it being so cheap on the Game Pass right now. There's really no excuse not to give it at least a good shot. My tips for the game would just be head to the quests. Don't really bother exploring. Just do the quests, listen to the story, enjoy the dialogue, and you've got a great game for 12 to 18 hours. I wouldn't say it's worth sinking the time into doing a load of side tracking missions and all of the side missions. One thing I will say just to note is for people that hate maps and following and they get lost and they hate trying to remember things, like currently I'm playing Zelda, and sometimes like the information is given to me by somebody and then I just have to manually remember it. When I'm playing other games and I'm doing other things, I just forget that piece of information and it's not stored anywhere. But this quest log is really good. It sorts everybody you've ever spoken to, all of the side missions, everything's tracked. You just click it and then it tells you where to go with an arrow. It's very, very useful for somebody like that just jumps in and out of games and wants to remember, oh, where was I up to? Because often I get lost in RPGs and frustrated at maps and stuff, but didn't really have any of that in my experience. So overall, The Outer Worlds, a very good game. I'm not going to give it a rating out of 10 because I just think that's just pointless. I will just say I enjoyed it. I recommend you give it a go. To the regular YouTube viewers that have stuck with me for this long, if you do enjoy my content, whether it's Gears of War, Path of Exile, whether it's the odd review or the streams, and you want to support what I do, this channel basically doesn't have monetization. I don't have like join, I don't have memberships or anything. So if you want to support me, you can do a Twitch Prime, you can subscribe on YouTube, leave a like and a comment is the best way. If you want to go a step further, you can donate. I don't like asking for all of this, but it's just something unfortunately I have to do due to the circumstances of my channel, but I'm humble enough to admit that every bit of support does help and goes a long way. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you're going to give Outer Worlds a try, even if you're not a big RPG guy. It might be the one that gets you involved in that sort of genre. I think it's very easy to pick up and play and very enjoyable. So thanks for watching.